was thinking about training and conditioning today, and how we often use elimination type tests, both in conditioning and also sometimes in skill development as well. So, for instance, like a beep test, where runners go, from one end to the other, and as long as they, make it in a certain time, they stay in, and then eventually, when they miss one or two in a row, then they're eliminated from the conditioning or from the test. And the ones that are still alive continue to go and go and go. I do an elimination free throw drill as well, where as long as you don't get so many points, you stay in the drill, and when you get to a certain number of points, then you're out of the drill, and the winners keep going and going and going. And the real problem with this is that in the conditioning or in the shooting, typically it's the better players that continue to go, and the lesser players, or the lesser skilled or the lesser conditioned players, are the ones who are eliminated. And so let's take a beep test, for example. If we go, let's say 20 down and backs, and now we've eliminated 2 or 3 players who are out of shape, typically they'll go to the side and sit and wait while those that are in shape continue to go and go and go. And so we don't want to end the test when the least conditioned athlete gets out, because that probably hasn't even provided a training stress to the most conditioned athlete. And so the most conditioned athletes wouldn't be getting anything out of it and wouldn't be improving. The same could be said for my free throw game, or even some of the tag games that I use that are elimination games. Typically it's the better players stay in and the lesser players get tagged out first. And so if the better players, if the game ended when the first player was tagged out, the better players may never have had any kind of training stimulus. There wasn't anything to help them improve or get better in that drill. So when we think about these elimination type drills, whether it's conditioning or skill development, there has to be something for those who are unskilled or those who are deconditioned to do, or they're just simply falling further and further behind. Because if you take somebody who's in better shape and they do more work because they're in better shape, and they continue to push themselves, they're going to continue to improve. And those that are deconditioned, may have only improved a slight amount by pushing themselves as far as they can go, and so the gap will tend to widen as opposed to decreasing, which tends to be the goal, of training, is to make sure that those that are deconditioned are catching up to those that are in better condition, and not having that gulf between the two widen, or the disparity widen. And so if we simply allow those who are knocked out to go and sit down, there's not a further training stimulus, and they're not improving. And so the players who get more reps or do more conditioning because of the drill or the test, they continue to get better, and so the gulf widens. So when we do any kind of elimination game, whether it's a skill development type game, a fun game like even something like knockout that lots of players like to play. But if you have the worst shooter gets knocked out on the first shot and they stand on the sideline and watch everybody else shoot, well, now your worst shooter's not getting better while your better shooters continue to play and play and play. So your better shooters might play a 10-minute game and get up, 20, 30, 40 more repetitions, whereas your worst player played for a minute, got knocked out, and then sat and watched everybody else shoot. So your better players are continuing to improve while your worst player isn't doing anything. So these types of elimination games, it's not that they're bad, and especially in conditioning, I like things like the beep test. I think they're a better method of conditioning than some other alternatives. But there has to be something for those who are knocked out to do, or else they will fall further behind. So as long as the space allows, if you get knocked out, on one end, maybe you go to the other end and you start another knockout game on the other end. Or maybe, if you get knocked out on one end, you go and just practice on your own on the other end, try to get more repetitions than you would if you were still in the game. Even though those repetitions might not have the same type of pressure as if you were involved in the game. Same thing in a beep test. Maybe if you get knocked out because you're not in the same type of condition and you can't make it at the speed, maybe you rest every other one. So you rest one, sprint one, as opposed to sprinting every single one. And so you're no longer part of the test, but you're still getting a form of conditioning, even though you're requiring more rest, because that's where you are in terms of your conditioning. You can't go with the limited amount of rest in the test. You need more rest, but it's providing you a further training stimulus to go beyond your current level of conditioning. So there's a chance that you can continue to improve and slowly try to decrease that gap between the deconditioned players and the most conditioned players. So again, whatever game it is, whenever a player is knocked out or eliminated, that shouldn't be the end of the drill for them. There needs to be something for them to do, or those players who are knocked out early are going to fall further and further behind those who are more skilled or more conditioned, and the gulf is going to widen between your top and your bottom. We need to have something in place for those lower conditioned players or lesser skilled players who get knocked out for them to do, so they can decrease the distance between the better and the better skilled to the better conditioned and the lower skilled and lower conditioned. So there have to be supplemental activities to do while the other ones are finishing their testing or finishing their game.